My ex-wife called me last night, crying, begging me to help cover her rent. The same woman who once told me to my face that I was not worth her time. The same woman a North Carolina judge ordered to pay me 6 years of alimony because in this state, when the spouse who out-earns you is the cheater, she pays, and the man she blew up our marriage for, he ran straight back to his wife and two little boys. So, before I tell you what I said to her, you are going to need the whole story, and then you can answer me one honest question. Am I really the bad guy here? Because I promise you, half of you will change your mind twice before the end. We were married for 19 years before any of this ever started. I am 46 years old, and I gave 15 of those years to one company. I ran their warehouse floor, opened the doors at dawn, locked them at night. Then corporate decided to downsize, and my whole department went with it. They handed me a decent severance, a firm handshake, and a wish of good luck. That severance check felt like a safety net, and it held us up about 9 months. My wife, in those days, was the real estate star of our whole little world. She had sold houses in our county for 10 years, and she was very good at it. For long stretches, she out-earned me, and I was genuinely proud to be her husband. I never once made that woman feel small about the money she carried home. But would you believe that same woman would one day call me worthless? Back then, I could not have pictured it if you had paid me to try. So, when my job vanished, I assumed we would lean on each other and ride it out. We had built something real together, or at least I had always believed we had. Two steady incomes, a house we were finally paying down, the whole quiet picture. And get this, I used to brag on that woman at every cookout we ever went to. My wife, the one who closed the deals nobody else could, even in the dead of winter. So, when my own paycheck disappeared, I did not panic for even a single day. I figured a marriage 19 years deep could absorb one rough patch. The audacity of me, assuming she saw me as a partner and not a wallet. Now ask yourself, what should a wife of 19 years do right there? Because what mine actually did still does not make sense to me. The housing market went ice cold. The very same season my severance ran dry. Houses stopped selling, and her commissions dried up right alongside my savings. So I did what a partner is supposed to do, and I carried our bills myself. I drained the last of that severance just to keep the lights on over our heads. And somewhere in those months, the woman I married quietly began to disappear. The first thing I noticed was the way she looked at me when I was home, like the sight of me on our couch at noon was some kind of personal insult. I was applying everywhere, taking every call, chasing down every single lead. None of it mattered to her, because in her eyes, I had simply stopped counting. She used to complain that I was never home, and now I was home far too much. There was no version of me that this woman was willing to be content with. The affection went first, then the conversation, then even the eye contact. We turned into two strangers quietly splitting a mortgage and a long silence. And then she started doing the one thing no married man can ever talk himself out of. She started taking her phone calls down in the basement, right next to the humming water heater. She started dressing sharp for a job that was barely paying her a dime. I kept telling myself it was the stress, the money, the rotten timing. I fed myself 100 excuses that year, and not one of them held up. Then one afternoon, everything changed with a single phone call. It came from a strange number, and the voice belonged to a woman. She said she worked with my wife, and then she asked me if my wife was okay. I said, of course she is, and then I asked her why she would even ask me that. She did not say anything for a second, like she already regretted dialing my number. Then she said, nobody at the office had laid eyes on my wife in 3 days. 3 days. Now sit in that the exact way that I had to sit in it. Because my wife left for that real estate office every single morning at 11. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her keys, and drove off to go sell houses. Except, by this woman's count, she had not been to that office in 3 days. So where does a grown woman go every morning, dressed for work, for 3 days straight? I thanked the coworker, set the phone down, and stood there a long minute with my hand still on it. I started calling my wife the very second that line went dead. She did not pick up, and she did not pick up, and she did not pick up. I called her for 7 straight hours, and I fired off texts that still make me wince. Her phone rang through to voicemail every time, like I was a bill collector. At 8 o'clock that night, she strolled through our door like nothing was wrong. I asked her where she had been, and I will admit my voice was not calm. I told her that her own office had called my phone looking for her. I told her they had not laid eyes on her in 3 days, so she could start there. She did not flinch. She did not explain, and that silence told me everything. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Where she goes is none of my business." A married woman told her own husband that her days were none of his business. So, what would you have done with a sentence like that thrown in your face? Me, I stopped asking my questions out loud that very night, and I started quietly finding the answers all on my own. I am not a jealous man, and in all those years, I had never gone digging through her things. 19 years, and I had never so much as peeked at her phone. But a husband can always tell a busy wife apart from a hiding one, and I was about to find something no instinct could have prepared me for. Now, I have to be honest with you about exactly what I could afford. A real private investigator wanted a retainer I simply did not have. I was out of work, my savings were gone, and she controlled all the real money. So I got resourceful with the little bit of cash I had left to my name. I took a chunk of it and I rented a plain, forgettable car for a few days. A car my wife had never seen. A car that did not say a thing about me. Then I ordered a cheap little GPS tracker, the kind that anyone can buy online, and I tucked it onto her car, the one we bought together in both of our names. The next morning, she left at 11, dressed to kill, and I let her drive off. Then I sat out on the back steps with the door open behind me and watched a little dot crawl across the county. It did not stop at an office, an open house, or a single listing. It stopped at a hotel on the far side of town, and there that dot just sat. So I drove the rental over, parked across that lot, and I waited like a fool. And do you want to know what walked out of that hotel an hour later? My wife, on the arm of another man, squinting into the afternoon sun. I sat in that rental car and memorized his face like a wanted poster. And this clown did not even bother to hide a single thing they did. He kissed my wife in a public lot, like he owned the whole town. He laughed. He touched her hair. He opened her door like a gentleman. Turns out arrogance that loud always leaves a long and easy trail. I knew exactly who he was because everybody in local real estate knew him. He was a broker with a flashy firm a couple of towns over from ours. He had the watch, the leased sports car, the smile that closed $1 million a year, and he had my wife hanging off his arm like a deal he had already signed. They stood there by his car in the wide open daylight, and they kissed, not a peck, not a friendly goodbye, but a kiss with a whole history inside it. I had my phone up and recording the whole time, and I caught every second. They never once glanced at the boring rental with the gutted man inside it. And do you know what hurt me the most sitting in that car? It was not the kiss, and it was not even all the lies she had told me. It was how comfortable they looked, like they had done this for months. It was the easy way she laughed at something this clown said. 19 years of marriage, and she never once laughed with me like that. I never honked. I never opened my door, and I never called out her name. I just drove myself home, sat in my own driveway, and shook for a solid hour. And then I made a decision that I think a lot of you would not have made. I did not go inside and confront her, even with everything I now had. Instead, I kept right on digging, because a man like that lies to more than one person. A man who lies that smoothly always has a whole life he is hiding. So I looked into him the way I should have looked into her months before, and what I found in 2 days of digging turned my stomach for a new reason. This golden boy my wife was risking everything for was a married man. He had a wife at home and 2 little boys who thought he hung the moon. To that man, my wife was never a romance and never any kind of future. She was his lunch break, his hotel hour, his comfortable thing on the side, and I was holding the one piece of truth that could level 2 whole households. Now, most men in my shoes would have dropped that on her like a bomb. I want you to remember that I chose to use it as a key instead. This is the decision that people judge me hardest for, so let me lay it out. I did not march up to my wife and throw those photos in her face. Instead, I tracked down that broker's wife, the mother of those 2 little boys, and I handed her the exact thing that somebody should have handed me, the truth, with the date, the location, and every shred of proof attached. No cruelty and no lecture, just the photographs and a few very plain words. I let her know she deserved the truth about what her husband did at noon. Then I stepped all the way back and let the truth do the work I could not pay for. And I will not stand here and pretend I did that purely out of kindness. Honestly, I wanted that whole rotten setup to burn down. And brother, it did. Inside of 1 week, that broker's tidy double life came apart at every seam. His wife was finished, his house was a war zone, his boys had questions, and a man built like that, the second the walls close in, always plays it safe. So whose side do you think he picked when the smoke finally cleared? He did not pick my wife, the woman who had detonated a marriage for him. He went crawling back to his wife and his sons, begging for one more chance. He dropped my wife so fast that she never even felt the floor come up. And just like that, the man she had traded me in for was simply gone. No grand romance, no shiny new life, just a hotel room nobody booked anymore. She had burned 19 years of her life for an hour that did not even want her. And the part she still did not know was exactly who had lit the match. That is the week I finally walked into a divorce lawyer's office. I barely slept the night before, bracing myself for nothing but bad news. I walked in certain a jobless man would be told he had no real options. And get this, I walked out holding the upper hand for the first time in a year. I laid the photographs on her desk, the tracker logs, the entire timeline. And my attorney told me something about North Carolina that I never knew. She said this state still cares, in one specific way, about who did the cheating. She walked me through how the state divides marital property with the little mind to fault. The house, the savings, the cars, all of that just gets divided down the middle. But alimony, she said, is the one place where the cheating truly counts here. So she asked me one question, and the answer was the entire ball game. She asked which one of us had been depending on the other one's income. And the second I answered that, it was me. Her whole face changed. She explained that I was what the law there calls the dependent spouse. I was the one out of work, the one leaning on the bigger paycheck, and my wife was a supporting spouse, the one earning the actual money. And get this, I made that lawyer repeat the next part to me twice. She said, when the supporting spouse is the cheater, the judge must order alimony. Not might, not maybe, but shall. Written in plain ink right in the statute. Her being the breadwinner did not save her, because she was also the cheater. The very thing she had held over my head became the reason she owed me. You should have seen her face when her own lawyer explained that to her. And get this, she still tried to fight me on every single nickel anyway. That is when I understood she would never admit she had done a thing wrong. I asked the attorney how long an order like that typically runs. She said for a marriage this long, the judges there lean on a rough rule, often somewhere near half the length of the marriage, give or take the facts. 19 years married could have meant the better part of a whole decade. And believe this, we did not even have to reach for that high number. The proof was so clean that her own attorney told her to just settle. The judge signed off on 6 full years of alimony paid by her to me. 6 years of that woman writing me a check on the first of every month. The house got sold, and we split what was left 50-50. I walked away with my half, my alimony, and the first real piece in years. She walked away with her half, her wrecked reputation, and a frozen market. And this is where the karma finally comes circling back around on her. My alimony got calculated on the income she pulled in during her best years. But those best years were already behind her the day the ink went dry. The market never really thawed, and her name had taken a hit around town. People talk, and in real estate, your reputation is the only thing you sell. Her commissions shrank, her listings vanished, and yet her own bills did not. So now she was paying me each month out of a checkbook that was bleeding dry. She lost the lifestyle, the big house, and the image she loved the most. And she landed in a cramped little apartment way out on the edge of town, the kind of place she used to drive her clients past, never planning to live in. So how does a proud woman handle falling that far, that fast? She pulls a move I never in 100 years saw coming, which carries us right back to that phone call that started all of this. It was nearly midnight, and her name lit up my phone after 2 years of silence. I almost let it ring straight out, but something told me to go ahead and answer. She was already crying before I could even get the word hello out. She told me she was 2 whole months behind on her rent. She told me her landlord had taped a notice right to her front door, and then she asked me, the man she had cheated on, to please help her pay it. She asked me to send back a little of the alimony she owed me, just this once. The woman who decided I was worthless now needed me to come rescue her. So I sank into my old recliner with the lights off and let the quiet sit there between us. So this is the moment where you get to decide what kind of man I really am. I told her no. I told her I would not send $1 past what the court already demands. I calmly reminded her about the coworker who called me about 3 missing days. I reminded her about the tracker, the hotel, and that kiss in the parking lot. I told her that I was the one who mailed those photos straight to his wife. I told her the empty apartment she was crying in, she had built that herself. She got real quiet for a beat, and then she called me cold and cruel and bitter. And maybe, after every bit of it, some small part of me really is. But I paid for our whole life when she would not, and she paid me back with a hotel. So that is my case, and now you are the jury. She cheated, she got caught, and the law made her pay the husband she wrote off. Her affair partner ran home, her income sank, and her rent finally came due. And when she finally needed saving, I handed her the same thing she handed me. Not one single thing. She struck the first match, and I just finally stopped paying for the gasoline. And I did not ruin that woman, no matter what she tells herself tonight. So, you tell me, after all of that, am I really the bad guy here? Well, in my opinion on this one, the cruelest thing she did was never the cheating. It was deciding that man was worthless the moment he could not fill her account. A person who only loves your paycheck never really loved you to begin with. So watch how somebody treats you when you have nothing left to give them. That is the only honest test of whether they ever really loved you at all. See you in the next one.